What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Midwest Motogirl podcast. I'm your host, Sydney Gard. You can follow me on Instagram at midwest.motogirl, just like the name of the podcast. Or you can follow my racing page on Facebook. It is Sydney, SYDNEY, Gard, GARD Racing. Again, that's Sydney Gard Racing on Facebook. So today I am actually recording while I am driving to Toronto. So I hope that the quality of this recording is okay. I've got my external microphone hooked up. I've got it on the clip to my seatbelt. Let's just say I have a long ways to go yet. I'm 7 hours into a 16-hour drive, and I will stop at some point and sleep for the night along the way. But I figured this is a great time to just sit and talk to you guys, record a new podcast episode. I'll probably edit when I get to the hotel, either tonight or tomorrow. But yeah, so trying something new today. And part of the reason that I decided to record this podcast right now is because I have been listening to Ken Hill interviews on different podcasts throughout my drive. And if you're not familiar with Ken Hill, I've talked about him on some of my previous podcast episodes, but he is a championship racer and a professional motorcycle coach and instructor. His resume with motorcycle racing and instructing is pretty huge. And all of the basically motorcycle podcasts that I've come across, I've found all of them just by searching Ken Hill in either Spotify or on Apple or on SoundCloud. Somebody sent me what he calls his Substack, and Ken Hill's Substack, it's basically like his digital coaching and instructing podcasts and tutorials and write-ups and things like that, and you're allowed to subscribe to it. It's pretty low cost, but somebody sent me a free trial of that last year, and so that's kind of how I started listening to him. And a few years back, I had somebody else tell me that they listen to Ken Hill when they're on long drives, and even if they're not with their motorcycle, just listening to him speak about riding and different techniques has helped them improve their riding skills. And so here recently, as I've been traveling a lot more, I've been driving up to Brainerd, which is 7 to 8 hour drive. I've been out at Motorsport Park Hastings multiple times this year, which is 2 hours there, 2 hours home. And I found that I have lots of time in the car, basically, where it's a perfect time to sit and listen to some of his coaching podcasts and reflect back on what he's saying versus what I think that I'm doing or need to do, and trying to relate those together for some takeaways that will help me become a better motorcycle rider and racer. So I was listening to an interview with him today in the truck, and I've been thinking about and reflecting on what that interview was about. I actually shared that podcast episode with a bunch of my racing friends and was like, hey, you guys need to listen to this Ken Hill interview because it's really good. But all of that, as I've been thinking about and reflecting on it, I was like, you know what? I should make a podcast episode about some of the key takeaways from that interview that I just listened to, some of my key takeaways from my latest race weekend with Central Road Racing Association, and just kind of wrap it up all together into one, I guess. So here we are. But anyways, so I am fresh off of a race weekend with the CRA. So last weekend, I raced in Brainerd, Minnesota again for round 2 with the Central Road Racing Association. And the weekend was phenomenal. I think that I say that every race weekend is fantastic and amazing. And that's because they all are. And the word that Ken Hill used in his interview today is that riding motorcycles and motorcycling in general, it's intoxicating. And that's exactly how I feel about racing. Every race weekend, I leave on this high, a mental high, where I'm just feeling so proud of myself. I'm excited about the progress that weekend. I had a great weekend hanging out with friends, doing the things that I love, and getting better at what I love doing. So him using the word intoxicating, I'm like, that's so true. It's exactly how I feel. And this past weekend, we did not have ideal weather. I had a good weekend, but not everybody in my pit had the same experience that I did. The one guy's bike broke down on the first lap in practice. So he didn't get to ride or race that bike all day on Saturday. It rained all day on Friday, so none of us went out for practice on Friday. We could have practiced in the rain, but it was also pretty cold. It was like 50 or 52 degrees that day. And we saw so many crashes on the track, just eye shot from our pit area, that we all decided, like, nope, it's not safe. The risk is not worth the reward. So none of us went out for practice, which I feel like kind of says a lot, because Brainerd is a new track for all of us. None of us have a ton of laps there. None of us know the track that well. And every single one of us said, yep, nope, the risk is not worth the reward. We're not going to practice today. We're going to forfeit our practice money so that we don't wreck. And so the first lap of practice on Saturday morning, one of his bikes broke down. And so he had to go back to registration, rearrange his races for the day so that he could still race on a different bike, try and salvage the rest of the day. And then that night, he worked on his bike for hours that night once we were done racing. And then he had a repeat of the same thing the next day. He went out for practice. It ran great during practice. The first race of the day on that bike, it broke down. And so he didn't get to run his race again. And it was the same thing where he had to go and shuffle his registrations, and he lost some of his registration money, I'm sure. But at the end of the weekend, we were all happy and excited, because even though we had kind of crappy weather, he had some mechanical failures, we all had personal best lap times that weekend. And we all had a really good time hanging out with each other, learning from each other, helping each other. And that's part of what is so intoxicating about racing motorcycles, is the community and the camaraderie, and basically like the silver linings. So even when bad things do happen, you can still usually find a silver lining. A great example of that is the guy whose bike broke down. Instead of being down about his bike not running properly and not being able to race, he said, okay, I'm going to rearrange races. I'm going to race a different bike, and I'm going to make the most out of it. And then he went out on his other bike and had personal best lap times. So you can always try and find a silver lining. And that kind of leads me into a conversation that we had on Friday while it was raining, and we're all just sitting in the one guy's RV, and we're just hanging out together. One of the things that was said is that you have to surround yourself with smarter people, or people that you aspire to be more like. And I've heard that a lot of times over the years, but what we were talking about in that case was motorcycle racing and my riding skills and trying to become a better rider. And I think that I had said that I really liked being around everybody who was faster and more intelligent than I was when it came to motorcycle racing, because there's so much that I've been able to learn, and so much more that I can learn from all of these guys that I've been racing with, traveling with, pitting with. And that's when Scott said, yeah, like you have to surround yourself with people who are smarter than you. And it's very, very true, because nobody wants to be the dumbest person in the room. So when you surround yourself with people who are smarter than you, and maybe that's not like IQ smarter than you, but maybe it's just somebody who is better at whatever activity you're trying to participate in, or who is more knowledgeable in whatever topic you want to learn about. When you surround yourself with those types of people, it makes you want to listen to what they have to say. It makes you want to work harder to learn and become better, because you want to aspire to be them. And it's kind of like a way that you just continue to level up in your skills and your knowledge. And I feel like that's exactly what has happened with me throughout the season, is this is my second year with this group basically. And last year I was kind of just getting used to being on a different bike. I was just kind of learning racing still. I still am learning, but last year was a lot more so. And I was trying to figure out how I learn tracks. I was trying to figure out what motivates me to go faster. And now that I've learned some of those things, I'm able to ask more questions of the other riders and my friends that I'm pitting with, to learn from them so that I can become a faster rider. And so far this year, it's paid off in huge dividends. If you've listened to any of my other race recaps, you've probably heard that almost every race weekend, I'm learning a ton. I'm getting way faster. I'm cranking out new PBs like left and right this season, which is absolutely amazing. But it also shows me that the sky really is the limit for me when it comes to racing. Like, I can keep getting faster. I can keep working to get faster. And it's not like you get faster one time and then like you've plateaued. Like, no, you continue being disciplined. You continue putting in the work. You continue asking questions, putting in the reps, working on your technique, working on your mindset. You're going to get faster. And that kind of ties in also with what Ken Hill was talking about in the interview that I was listening to. The interviewer asked Ken, what is the number one thing that you can do to become a better rider? And Ken's response was that the best thing you can do to become a better motorcycle rider is to take this sport more seriously. And what he meant by that was be disciplined and treat the sport like a sport. If you want to be the best motorcycle rider that you can be, you need to work on your technique. You need to work on your mindset. You need to work on your physical fitness. All three of those things go hand in hand. And especially with racing, where racing is a very physical, mentally challenging, and technical sport, you have to have all three of those, and you have to continue working on all three of those to meet your full potential. Then he got some more into the technical stuff that I'm not going to cover in today's episode, but I will definitely cover that in another episode. But that really got me thinking about, like, okay, you have to work on all three of those things. You have to take it more seriously. And I feel like that's a little bit of the difference between last year and this year for me. And all the years prior to, when I was either a new rider or I was just doing track days or whatever it may be, before I got to this point, I was not treating motorcycling maybe as a serious sport. I was kind of treating it as a hobby, and I've touched on that before. But this year, I have like this burning desire. Instead of sitting there saying I want to be faster, I'm doing everything that I feel like I can do without burning myself out to try and be faster. I'm listening to podcasts from riding instructors. I'm asking my friends that are much faster racers than I am questions. They're sending me resources of things that I can learn and watch and listen to. I've started taking video while I'm riding, like with a GoPro on my bike, so that I can see my lines. And it's not just like you work on it one time and you're done. You have to continue working on it. And honestly, like even this podcast has helped me a lot, where after a race weekend, I'm reflecting back on how the weekend went, what I can do better for the next time. And then I'm actively trying to do those things the next time. So like having this podcast has helped me a lot too. From a mental side of things, when I go to the gym, I'm thinking more about what muscles do I need to get stronger to be a faster racer. It's like, obviously, like you want all parts of your body to be strong, but I know that between my shoulder blades gets tired when I ride. So I do certain weightlifting exercises to try and build that muscle. I know that my hamstrings sometimes get tired when I ride. So I've been working on strengthening my hamstrings. Like all of those things tie together to help make you a better, faster, stronger, more disciplined motorcycle rider. For me, I'm talking more specifically about like my racing, but this applies to any type of motorcycling that you're doing, whether you're cross-country touring, you're commuting to work, maybe you're doing motocross or like adventure riding. whatever type of motorcycling you're doing, you still have to treat it like it's a disciplined sport, because the risks are great. Any type of motorcycling has risks, and the better that you can be with your technique, the better you can be with your mindset, and the better you can be with your physical fitness, all of those are going to tie together to help keep you safer, help you be a better rider, and minimize some of the big risks that come along with riding a motorcycle. One of the examples that Ken used in his interview that I was listening to was that people think of, like, say, think about bowling, for example, where bowling is a sport. And there's tons of people who have never bowled before, and they say, oh, I'm going to go bowling. It sounds like fun. And you bowl a gutter ball, and okay, it's no big deal. But think about it if you were to go bowling and you threw a gutter ball, and you've got somebody sitting there waiting for you saying, okay, you messed up, you made a big mistake, I'm going to break your collarbone now. That's what happens in motorcycle racing or motorcycle riding in general. If you're not on your game and you're not practicing and becoming better and you're not focused on what you're doing, you make a big mistake that causes a crash, there's a good potential that you could break something. You could break your collarbone. And if you had more people that were realizing some of the inherent risks that come with motorcycling, more people may treat it a lot more differently, or they may treat it with more discipline. Now that I've kind of been rambling about this interview that I listened to and some of the things that I've been doing, so let's get back to my CRA weekend. So did not go out for practice at all on Friday because of the weather, but we had some great conversations about surrounding yourself with people smarter than you or people faster than you, basically people you can learn with or learn from. And so then Saturday morning, we had some difficulties getting on track. So the CRA has some rules about how many corner workers are required before they can open the track. Most race organizations or track days that I've been a part of, they only require one corner worker per corner, like per corner station. However, the CRA requires 2 people, because typically they do not throw a red flag if there is a crash or a rider who goes down. So kind of the gist of that is that they would have one corner worker who would have stay in the corner worker station or stay in the flag stand and display a waving yellow flag, and the other corner worker would go and help pick up the bike and get the rider and the bike out of the impact zone while the track is still hot. The CRA is also run mostly by volunteers, so all of the corner workers are volunteers. And on Saturday morning, they did not have enough volunteers to open the track. So we were kind of delayed, and we did not get on track on time, which then dug into our practice time. And so we still got 2 practice sessions before the first race of the day. But those practice sessions were really, really short. So I only got 2 laps per practice session. So the first lap was basically like a sighting lap or a warm-up lap. And then the second lap was like at pace. But when you're only running 1 lap at pace, it's really hard to get into get into a groove. And so after the practice session, I was thinking like, wow, that really sucked. And I don't feel prepared for the race, but I was the second race of the morning, and I was just like, all right, like, you need to put your head on straight. You're going to visualize exactly what you want to do at every single corner. And you're going to get through this. You're going to go out there and race and do the best that you can. And so that's what I did. And the race itself was good, but I came back pretty frustrated. So my first race of the day, I bumped up to ultra lightweight, which is a 400cc class, and I am riding a 300cc bike. So it's kind of just like a practice race, I guess. But in the ultra lightweight race, they have another race class on track at the same time. They have a welterweight class. I believe welterweights are like 600cc. I'm not exactly for sure. But the welterweight class was in wave 1, and then ultra lightweight was in wave 2. So they they got a green flag first. The welterweight class starts their race, and once they get like through turn 1, then we get a green flag and our race starts. Well, because those bikes were significantly faster than the ultra lightweight bikes, they caught up to me by the end of the race. And so I crossed the finish line for my last lap with a white flag indicating that I had one more lap. And I had been chasing the bike in front of me that was a supermoto bike, and I was kind of gaining on him. I really thought that I could catch him in the last lap. And so when I saw that white flag, I was like, all right, awesome. I've got one more lap to try and figure out how to catch this guy and get around him. But the welterweight class caught up to me, or the leader of that class caught up to me at the finish line. So I crossed the finish line like maybe half a bike or maybe a full bike, very, very little in front of him. So I had a waving white flag and he got the checker. So he did not realize that I had crossed the finish line in front of him and had one more lap. So when he started his cool down lap, he ended up blocking me so that I couldn't catch the supermoto guy. He did not realize that I was still racing until we were through like turns 1 or 2. And so that was really frustrating to me. And I came back after the race really frustrated and was like, that stunk. Like, I was going to catch that guy, blah, 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 blah. And my buddy Scott looks at me and he's like, it's fine. Like, you've got more races. Just shake it off. And I was like, yep, he's right. I have another race like right after this. I just need to get my head on straight and do better so that I don't end up in that situation again. I happened to look at my lap times between then and when I went out for my next race. And I noticed on my lap times that in the first race of the day, after having very little practice on Saturday morning, no practice on Friday, my fastest lap was 2 seconds faster than my fastest lap in May. And so I was pretty jazzed about that. And I was like, okay, well, that felt like not a very good race. It didn't feel very fast. I was frustrated with the finish, but I was still 2 seconds faster. So like, let's freaking go. Like, I knew that I could make like big leaps and bounds in the weekend after I saw that. And every single race that I went out for on Saturday, I kept getting faster. And by the end of the day on Saturday, my fastest lap was a 2:01. So 2 minutes and 1 second. So that's a whole 5 seconds faster than what my fastest lap back in May was, which is huge. 5 seconds. And some of that is because I'm getting more familiar with the track. So I'm learning like where I can brake later and things like that. But still, like, that's just, it's huge. And so on Sunday, I woke up and I said, you know what? Today's a great day for a PR, for a new PR, a new PB. And pretty much every race weekend, I tell myself that. And I'm starting to really believe that, where when I tell myself that it's a good day for a new personal best, it seems like I almost always hit those new personal bests. And it doesn't matter if it's 0.1 second better. For whatever reason, throughout this year, as I'm telling myself that, it's really starting to click and I'm believing that I can actually hit these PBs. So I'm pushing harder in races, which is just amazing. But Sunday, I ran 6 races again. And I actually had my first CRA podium finish. So it was either the second or the third ultra lightweight race of the day. I had a killer start. I had an absolutely amazing start. And I got way out in front of almost everybody else in that class. And even though my lap times during that race were not the fastest lap times, I got a big enough gap at the start of the race that the guys behind me that were running like maybe half or a full second faster than me, they were not able to catch me. And so, yeah, I finished with a 3rd place in one of the ultra lightweight races, which felt really, really cool. I didn't even realize that it happened until I looked at the results later and I was like, holy crap, I podiumed today. And then throughout the day on Sunday, I kept pushing and I was like, I'm gonna get faster. I'm gonna get faster. I'm gonna get faster. And I was really shooting for a 1:59, which I did not hit. My fastest lap ended up being a 2-minute 0.2. So I was 0.2 seconds away from, or I'm sorry, 0.3 seconds away from a 1:59.9, which was my goal. But still, like 6 seconds faster throughout the weekend versus where I finished at CRA in May. It's huge. It's amazing. And every single person that I was pitted with, every single person had a podium finish, and every single one of us had personal best this weekend. So at the end of the weekend, we're all just like completely jazzed, completely excited, because it was what they call a twin sprint weekend, where we ran all of our sprint races on Saturday and then all of them again on Sunday versus splitting up the classes between Saturday and Sunday. We were all just completely smoked at the end of the day on Sunday. It was after 7 p.m. when we left the racetrack on Sunday night, and we all had like 6+ hours to drive home, and none of us cared. We were all like, this weekend was awesome. And even though there were some hiccups along the way, like we all made the most of it and had an awesome, fantastic time. And even though I was just smoked and tired on the drive home, the first few hours of the drive, I just legitimately could not stop smiling. Could not stop smiling. And I was so excited. I had to text my friend Craig and tell him about the weekend. And my text to him started out with, guess who had a new PB and a podium finish this weekend? And he guessed all of these other people. And I know that he was just joking with me, but he guessed all these other people, and it was just like, come on, it was me. But it was really exciting. And so as we're talking, I'm telling him that that I really want a podium finish at Track Addicts. So Track Addicts is the track day organization that I participate with. And my next track day with Track Addicts will be June 28th. So just like a week and a half away. But I told him that I really wanted a podium finish with them. They do a racing series after the track day. So anybody who does the track day can sign up for the Track Addicts GP races at the end of the day. They do a lightweight class and they do a superbike class. It only costs $10 per class, so it's super cheap, and it's a great way to try out racing if you think that you want to do it. But they're just really fun, and they do like a podium presentation at the end, and with the champagne, and like it's just a really fun atmosphere. And I remember signing up for Track Addicts races last year, and I finished last every single race, and I was just like, gosh, like this sucks, like I'm always finishing last. And I would kind of get down on myself about it, and then people would remind me like, hey, you finished last, but you went out there and did it. Or you finished last, but you had a 2-second PB in that race. Like, hey, don't like downgrade yourself because you finished last. Like, the people here are just fast, and they are. The Track Addicts people, for whatever reason, they're all really fast riders. And so I was like, yeah, you're right. And so this year, as I've been doing the Track Addicts races at the end of the track days, the first race, I believe I finished last. In April, I finished last. And then in May, I was like, I'm not finishing last. And I didn't. It was not a PB, but it was really close to it. Or maybe it was a PB, but I did not finish last. I passed somebody, and then I stayed in front of him, and I was just so excited. I was like, this is the first Track Addicts race that I haven't finished last. And as I was telling Craig about my weekend, I was like, I really want a Track Addicts podium finish. And he was like, well, you've been improving a lot. Like, you can do it. And I was like, gosh, like everybody is just so fast. I'm still like 2-3 seconds behind them at Track Addicts. And gosh, I don't know. And his response to me was, manifest that shit. Like, word for word, that's what he told me. And that really, like him saying that, it really just ties into kind of like the whole, I want to say, theme of the weekend, where we had been talking about like, surround yourself with people smarter than you. Learn from the people that are smarter than you. Take advice from the faster riders than you. Ask questions. And when you think about manifesting, basically all that manifesting is doing is like acting a certain way or like putting a certain energy out there into the universe. Maybe that's being positive, and then being intentional about like what decisions you're making so that you can get to that next level, whatever that is. And so when he said that, I was like, like he's completely right. It's literally in my control. I can do 100 different things to become a faster motorcycle racer, and that will help me get faster lap times. And if I want to be on the podium, I can be on the podium. I just have to believe that. And I have to put in the work and be disciplined, just like Ken Hill was talking about with be disciplined in how you treat motorcycling so that you can become a faster, better rider. And so I've kind of been thinking about that all week now. That was Sunday night when I was talking to Craig about that. Today is Wednesday as I'm recording the podcast. And I've been thinking about that like all week, and just, I don't want to say living that, but like it's just been in my brain where I'm like, yes, like I can do this, like believing that I can do this, believing that I can get faster. And I've slowly been like asking some of my other friends that are really fast motorcycle racers, like, hey, is this school worth it? What resources are out there? Like, what can I do? And I have been thinking about racing motorcycles almost 100% of the time since I got home on Monday morning. And even past that, like throughout this whole race season, it almost seems like that is all that's on my brain. Since race season started, even when I'm at home, all I want to do is think about motorcycles, work on my motorcycles, do the things that are going to make me a faster motorcycle rider. Like my whole life revolves around it. And it's like this, it's so cool. It's just so cool. And so the long story, or I guess it's been a long story, but to wrap up, the weekend with CRA was fantastic. It was amazing. I'm super excited and proud of all of the progress that I've made this year, both at Hastings and with Track Addicts and with the CRA. Like I said, 6 seconds just between one weekend to the next, like that is huge. And I'm not ready to be done. Like there's so much race season left, and there's so much more work that I want to do and put in. And it's like, it's invigorating. It's intoxicating, as Ken Hill said. Like, think about like an intoxicating drug or an alcohol. Like, you want more. Like, you feel this high, and that's like what gets you addicted. And that's exactly what I feel when I am racing. That's exactly what I feel when I'm around my motorcycle friends. That's exactly what I feel when I come home after a race weekend or after a track day. And I'm just so ready for more. So thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. If you are enjoying the podcast, please go ahead and give me a like or a follow. I will be doing a Q&A podcast episode here in the very near future. So if you're listening to this episode and you have some questions that you want to ask me, whether that be about my motorcycle journey, riding, or just, I guess, anything in general that you think that you want answered on the podcast, send me a message or leave a comment on this episode, and I will be compiling a list of questions that I'll answer for my Q&A episode coming up shortly. So again, thank you for being here, and we'll talk to you guys soon.